She shrugged. Your family issues don't matter to me. I quietly agreed. But when her sister was arrested, I repeated those same words, and she broke down. Victoria and I had been together 3 years, engaged for 8 months, planning a spring wedding that was supposed to unite our families perfectly. I'm 28, work as an operations manager for a logistics company, the kind of stable career that lets me sleep at night. Victoria was 26, worked in digital marketing downtown, and we'd settled into this comfortable rhythm where everything felt predictable. The first real crack appeared when my younger sister Jade called on a Tuesday evening, voice shaking. Jade was 23, brilliant and creative, designing user interfaces for a tech startup right out of college. That courage had just backfired spectacularly when the startup suddenly folded after losing its primary investor, giving everyone 2 weeks' notice. Her roommates, also startup employees, immediately bailed on their shared lease to move back with family in other states, leaving Jade holding a $2,400 monthly rent obligation she couldn't possibly cover alone while job hunting. Brandon, I've applied to 17 positions, she said, trying not to cry. I have savings for maybe 1 more month if I'm careful, but the landlord wants 3 months' notice to break the lease. I'm stuck. I told her we'd figure something out, and immediately thought of our guest room, the one Victoria used for storage and occasionally as a home office. Jade could stay temporarily, maybe 6 to 8 weeks while finding a position. When I mentioned it to Victoria that night while she scrolled through wedding Pinterest boards, her response was flat. No. We're not even going to discuss it? There's nothing to discuss, Brandon. Family problems belong to the individual, not the couple. If Jade had better financial planning, she wouldn't be in this situation. She chose to work at some risky startup instead of getting a real job with security, and now she's facing consequences. I felt something cold settle in my chest. She's 23 and took a calculated risk that didn't work out. We have the space. And what if she doesn't land something in weeks? What if it takes months? Then we're stuck with a permanent roommate who can't contribute rent. I'm not running a charity, and I'm not starting our marriage by setting a precedent that family members can just move in whenever they hit a rough patch. Victoria finally looked at me, expression completely neutral. Your sister is an adult. She needs to solve her own problems. That's what adults do. So family should just figure things out on their own, no matter what? Exactly. Your family issues don't matter to me, Brandon. I have my own family to worry about if something happens to them. Keeping boundaries clear from the start prevents resentment later. If we start letting family members lean on us financially or otherwise, it never stops. Next thing you know, you're supporting someone indefinitely because they learned to be helpless. I nodded slowly and pulled out my phone to research studio apartments. If Victoria wanted boundaries, fine. I'd handle my family my own way. I found a tiny studio about 15 minutes from Jade's job search area, signed a 6-week lease using my emergency fund. $2,800 up front, plus I transferred Jade another $800 for groceries and interview clothes. She cried when I sent her the address, thanking me repeatedly while apologizing for being a burden. I told her she wasn't a burden, that family shows up when it matters. When Victoria saw the bank statement 2 weeks later, she confronted me in the kitchen. You spent over $3,000 on your sister? That's money we could have put toward the wedding or honeymoon. What were you thinking? I was thinking my sister needed help and you made it clear you weren't interested in providing any, I said evenly. That's my emergency fund, my money, and I chose to use it for an actual emergency. You said family problems belong to the individual, so I handled it as an individual. She shook her head with a tight smile. Fine. It's your money, I guess you can waste it however you want. Just don't expect me to bail you out if you run into problems later because you gave away your safety net. I almost laughed at the irony but just took my coffee and headed to work. That night, I lay awake wondering what kind of person I'd agreed to marry. Jade sent updates throughout the week. Interviews scheduled, portfolio reviews, positive feedback. She was working 12-hour days applying and networking, nothing like the helpless leech Victoria had implied she'd become. 3 weeks after moving into the studio, Jade called with good news. She'd landed a junior graphic designer position at a mid-sized agency with solid benefits and room for growth. When she offered to pay me back, I told her to focus on rebuilding her savings instead. Victoria's reaction was a distracted, "That's nice," before returning to her phone, no acknowledgement that her assessment had been completely wrong. 2 weeks later, Jade moved into a shared apartment with colleagues from her new job and started rebuilding her life. She sent photos of her modest setup and thanked me again. Victoria barely acknowledged it, already moved on to planning bachelor and bachelorette parties. I should have recognized her dismissiveness wasn't just about boundaries, it was about fundamental inability to extend empathy beyond her immediate circle. But I convinced myself one disagreement didn't invalidate 3 years of history. I had no idea how quickly that perspective would shift when Victoria's own family crisis arrived. The call came at 2:30 in the morning on a Saturday, Victoria's phone lighting up the bedroom. I was barely awake when she answered, but her panicked tone snapped me alert. Owen was 29, worked in sales for some tech company, and had always struck me as the guy who thought rules were suggestions. Victoria had mentioned his gambling habit casually before, like a quirky personality trait rather than a problem. Now it had become everyone's business. "What do you mean arrested?" "Owen, slow down, what happened?" Victoria sat up, hand pressed to her forehead. I could hear Owen's frantic voice through the phone. From what I pieced together, he'd been at a casino downtown, lost heavily at blackjack, gotten belligerent with the pit boss, and when security tried to escort him out, he'd shoved one of them into a slot machine. The security guard had a sprained wrist and bruised ribs. Owen was facing assault charges, and the casino was demanding $8,000 in gambling debts he'd accumulated over 3 months. "Bail is $20,000, Victoria said, voice shaking. "Brandon, we need to go to the police station right now. We need to get him out before he's transferred to county in the morning." I looked at the clock, then at Victoria's panicked face, then back at the ceiling. Something calm and cold settled over me. "Your family issues don't matter to me." The silence was so complete I could hear the neighbor's dog barking 3 doors down. Victoria stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language, mouth open, eyes wide. "What did you just say?" "Your family issues don't matter to me. Owen's an adult. He needs to solve his own problems. That's what adults do, right?" Your exact words when Jade was facing homelessness. Victoria's face went through confusion, recognition, then genuine fear. "Brandon, this is completely different. Owen could go to jail. He needs help right now. Jade could have ended up on the street, but you said family problems belong to the individual. Owen made his choices, gambling, drinking, assaulting security. Those are consequences of his own actions, much more directly than Jade's startup folding. If Owen had better impulse control and didn't have a gambling problem, he wouldn't be in this situation." I rolled over, pulling the blanket up. "I'm going back to sleep. You handle your family your way, I'll handle mine. Boundaries, remember? Brandon, you can't be serious. This is my brother. He's terrified and alone in a cell and you're just going to roll over?" Her voice was rising, shrill. "Completely serious. Good night, Victoria." I closed my eyes and waited. She sat there for maybe 5 minutes, phone clutched in hand, breathing hard. I could feel her staring at me. When I didn't move, she finally got up and left the bedroom. I heard her pacing the living room, making desperate phone calls in the middle of the night. I didn't feel guilty. I felt absolutely nothing except a strange sense of equilibrium, like the universe had balanced its ledger. The next morning, Victoria was awake when I came out for coffee, still wearing yesterday's clothes, eyes red from crying. She'd clearly been up all night arranging bail money. The moment she saw me, she exploded. "How could you do this? How could you abandon my brother when he needs help? What kind of person are you?" I poured my coffee slowly, taking my time with cream and sugar. "I'm the kind of person who respects boundaries. You established clearly that family problems should be handled individually, without involving partners. I'm following the guidelines you set." That was different. Jade was just having job problems. Owen is facing criminal charges. He could end up with a record that ruins his career. So there's a hierarchy of crisis? Some family emergencies matter and others don't? When exactly does the threshold get crossed where it's acceptable to ask for help? Victoria slammed her hand on the counter. Stop being such a vindictive asshole and help me figure this out. I took a sip and looked at her directly. Owen is 29. He went to a casino, gambled away $8,000 he didn't have, got drunk, and assaulted someone. That's not bad luck. That's deliberate choices with predictable consequences. Jade lost her job through no fault of her own and her roommates bailed. See the difference? He has a gambling problem. He needs support, not judgment. Then maybe you should have been more supportive instead of enabling him by treating it like a quirky hobby. Regardless, by your philosophy, his problems are his to solve. I'm being consistent with the values you established. Victoria stared at me with complete betrayal. Fine. I'll handle this myself, like I handle everything in this relationship. She stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I finished my coffee, then made breakfast and watched the morning news. My phone buzzed with texts from Victoria throughout the day, each more desperate, but I didn't respond. By evening, I learned she'd scraped together bail by borrowing from her parents and maxing out credit cards. Owen was out but facing court dates. Victoria came home after midnight, exhausted, and went straight to bed without speaking. We spent the next week in complete silence, the most peaceful week I'd had in months. On day 8, I came home to find Victoria had cooked dinner. Actual home-cooked dinner, not takeout on nice plates. The table was set properly, candles lit, and she wore the dress I'd once said looked nice. I stood in the doorway processing this transparent manipulation. I made your favorite, she said, voice carefully neutral. Chicken parmesan with garlic bread. We ate in awkward silence for 10 minutes before she launched into a rehearsed speech. Brandon, I've been thinking. Owen's lawyer says he needs a criminal defense attorney, someone experienced with assault cases. The public defender is overwhelmed and basically told Owen to accept whatever plea deal the prosecutor offers. A private attorney could get the charges reduced or dismissed, but they're asking $15,000 up front. I was hoping we could loan Owen the money. Not give it, loan it. He'd pay us back once this is resolved. I know it's a lot, but he's family. I finished chewing, took a sip of water, looked at her directly. No. Brandon, please. I'm not asking for bail money, I handled that. I'm asking for legal defense help. This could determine whether Owen has a criminal record for life. That affects his career, his future, everything. And Jade's eviction could have determined whether she became homeless, affecting her career and future. But you said family problems belong to the individual. Owen made deliberate choices that led to criminal charges. Those are consequences he needs to face. Victoria's composure cracked. Why are you being so cruel? This isn't revenge for Jade. This is about my brother potentially going to jail. I'm not being cruel, I'm being consistent. You established the boundaries, Victoria. You said clearly that your family issues don't matter to me and mine don't matter to you. I'm respecting the framework you created. That was before I understood how it would feel. I didn't realize Owen would be in a situation this serious. People say things in the moment they don't fully mean. I almost laughed. So your philosophy only applies when convenient? When it's my sister, boundaries matter. When it's your brother, suddenly family should rally together. That's not principles, that's hypocrisy. She slammed her fork down. Fine. You want me to admit I was wrong about Jade? I was wrong. I should have let her stay. I should have been supportive. I'm sorry, okay? Is that what you need before you'll help Owen? I don't need to hear anything. This isn't about punishing you or extracting an apology. This is about you learning that actions have consequences. You taught me that family members should handle their own problems, and I'm applying that lesson exactly as instructed. Victoria stood abruptly, chair scraping. You're destroying my family to prove a point. Owen could end up with a criminal record because you want to be petty. I'm not destroying anything. Owen destroyed his own situation by gambling, drinking, and assaulting someone. The criminal record would be earned through his behavior, not created by my refusal to fund his defense. If you can't see the difference between someone facing homelessness through bad luck and someone facing jail through bad choices, that's a comprehension problem. She stared at me with pure hatred, then grabbed her phone and stormed into the bedroom. I heard her making phone calls, voice rising through the walls, trying to rally support. An hour later, my phone rang. Victoria's father, Robert. I answered on speaker. Brandon, it's Robert. Victoria called us upset. She says you're refusing to help with Owen's legal situation. That's correct. Son, I know Owen made mistakes, but he's facing serious consequences. We're doing everything we can, but $15,000 is beyond what Diane and I can manage after posting bail. Victoria thought maybe you two could help. Robert, did Victoria tell you what happened when my sister Jade was facing eviction? Silence. What do you mean? Jade's startup folded and her roommates bailed on the lease, leaving her facing homelessness. I asked if she could stay in our guest room temporarily. Victoria refused completely, saying family problems belong to the individual and she wasn't running a charity. Her exact words were, "Your family issues don't matter to me." So I used my emergency fund to rent Jade a studio until she found a job, which took 3 weeks. Now Victoria wants $15,000 for Owen's defense after establishing that family members should solve their own problems. More silence. I could hear Robert breathing, processing information Victoria had left out. Victoria said that? About your sister being homeless? Word for word. I can play you the recording if you'd like. I hadn't recorded it, but the bluff worked. That won't be necessary. I'm disappointed to hear this. That's not how we raised her. Victoria's voice came through in the background, shrill. Dad, that's not what happened. He's twisting everything. Robert's voice turned sharp. Victoria, I'm on the phone. We'll discuss this later. Then back to me, calmer. Brandon, I appreciate you being honest. I don't agree with Victoria's stance on your sister, and I understand why you feel this way about Owen. I won't ask you to contribute. I appreciate that, Robert. But I hope you two can work through this before it damages things permanently. After we hung up, I heard Victoria screaming at her mother through the phone about me being vindictive and her father taking my side. Diane had apparently gone silent after hearing the full story, which upset Victoria more than Robert's disappointment. The rest of the evening was cold warfare. I slept on the couch that night by choice, preferring it to sharing space with someone finally understanding what accountability felt like. 3 days later, someone pounded on the door like they were trying to break it down. I opened it to find Owen looking like he'd aged 5 years. Bloodshot eyes, greasy hair, wrinkled clothes, reeking of cigarettes and stale alcohol. Brandon, Manitoba, please. I need to talk to you. He pushed past me without invitation, pacing like a caged animal. Victoria's not here, I said, leaving the door open. I know. I came to see you. Look, I get that you're mad about whatever happened with your sister, but that's between you and Victoria. I'm the one facing jail time. I'm the one whose life is about to get destroyed because I made one stupid mistake. One stupid mistake? Owen, you gambled away $8,000 over 3 months, got drunk at a casino, and assaulted a security guard. That's not one mistake, that's a pattern of bad decisions. He stopped pacing, looked at me with rage and desperation. You think I don't know that? I have court in 6 weeks and my public defender has spent exactly 20 minutes talking to me. A real lawyer could argue self-defense, negotiate the assault down to disorderly conduct, maybe keep this off my record. But that requires money I don't have. Then you should have thought about that before gambling away $8,000 you also didn't have. Owen's face flushed. You self-righteous piece of garbage. You're sitting here in your nice townhouse with your stable job acting like you've never made a mistake. Must be nice to be so perfect you can watch someone's life fall apart and feel good about it. I walked to the door and held it wider. I don't feel good about it, I feel nothing about it. You created this situation entirely on your own. The gambling addiction you never addressed, the debts you accumulated, the violence you chose. Those are your choices, your consequences. And just like Victoria told me when my sister was facing homelessness, family problems belong to the individual. This is about revenge? You're really going to let me go to jail because Victoria wouldn't let your sister crash on your couch? Jade wasn't looking to crash on a couch. She was facing actual eviction and homelessness because her career collapsed through no fault of her own. And I'm not letting you do anything. You already did it. I'm refusing to fund your escape from accountability. Owen stepped closer, trying to intimidate me with his height. My sister loves you. She's planning to marry you. And you're going to destroy her family because of some petty grudge. Victoria established clearly that her family and mine operate independently. I'm honoring that boundary. And if she truly loved me, she wouldn't have dismissed my sister's crisis so callously. She loved the stability I provided, the reliable paycheck, the predictable future. That's not the same thing. He cycled through tactics. Anger hadn't worked, sympathy hadn't worked, guilt hadn't worked. Finally, he tried honesty. I'm scared, Brandon. Genuinely terrified. I've never been in real trouble, and now I'm looking at jail and a criminal record and losing my job. The company already put me on suspension. If I'm convicted, I'm done. No one in financial services will touch me with a record. Then you should be more scared of your gambling addiction than my refusal to enable your sister's hypocrisy. Get yourself into treatment, own what you did, and face consequences like an adult instead of running around begging for money to make it disappear. Owen's expression hardened. You're going to regret this. When Victoria realizes what kind of person you really are, she's going to leave you. If she leaves me over this, then I never had anything worth keeping. Get out. He left, slamming the door. I texted Victoria, your brother just showed up unannounced and tried to intimidate me into giving him money. If he comes back, I'm calling the police. Her response came 20 minutes later. He's desperate. You could fix this, but you're choosing not to. That says everything about who you are. I didn't respond. That evening, my phone blew up with texts from Victoria's extended family. Her cousin Felicia sent a long message about family meaning being there unconditionally, ignoring that Victoria had refused to be there for Jade. Her uncle Dennis called me selfish. Her Aunt Patricia sent Bible verses about forgiveness. I blocked them all. 2 days later, Owen created a crowdfunding campaign for his legal fees. Help Owen Fight Unjust Charges was the title, and the description was self-sabotage. He detailed his gambling problem, the assault, the debts, framing himself as a victim of addiction. He included previous gambling incidents his family had covered up, loans from his parents he'd never repaid, basically creating a public record of why he deserved whatever consequences were coming. The campaign raised $300 before someone shared it on a local forum where it got picked up by a news outlet doing a series on gambling addiction. The article was sympathetic to addiction but less sympathetic to Owen personally, especially when they interviewed the security guard he'd assaulted, who was still in physical therapy. Within 48 hours, Owen's employer, a financial services firm with strict ethics policies, terminated him for bringing negative attention to the company and violating their conduct standards. Victoria called me screaming about how I'd destroyed Owen's life and her family, but I hadn't done anything except refuse to fix problems he created himself. The situation was escalating exactly as I'd known it would once people stopped enabling Owen's behavior. Victoria came home that night and delivered her ultimatum standing in the doorway like she was preparing for battle, clearly rehearsed. Brandon, I've thought about this carefully and here's where we are. Either you help Owen financially with his legal defense, or I'm calling off the engagement. This is non-negotiable. I need to know right now if you're the kind of man who shows up for family or abandons people when things get difficult. I looked up from my laptop and actually laughed. Not bitter or sarcastic, but genuine amusement. You're giving me an ultimatum? That's your play. I'm serious. I can't marry someone who would let my brother go to jail just to prove a point. If you can't help him now, what happens when we have real problems? When we have kids and things get hard? I need to know you'll be there for my family. I closed my laptop and stood up, walking over slowly. Victoria, our relationship ended the moment you told me my sister's homelessness didn't matter to you. I just didn't realize it because I'm not the type to break a lease midterm or abandon commitments impulsively. But watching you scramble to get help for Owen after dismissing Jade so completely? That's been enlightening. It's removed any guilt I might have felt about how this ends. Her confident expression faltered. What are you saying? I'm saying your ultimatum is irrelevant because I'm already done. You can call off the engagement if you want, or I can do it now. Either way, we're finished. The only reason I stayed this long was to see if you'd learned something from experiencing your own philosophy. You haven't. You've just proven your boundaries only apply to other people's families. You're breaking up with me? Over money? Over refusing to help someone facing jail time? Her voice was rising. I'm breaking up with you because you're a hypocrite who only values family when it's convenient, who established cruel boundaries and expected exemption when they affected you. I stayed because I wanted to see you confront the reality of what you said about Jade. Honestly, it's been more satisfying than I expected. Victoria's face went through shock, rage, then panic. You're seriously ending 3 years together because I wouldn't let your sister stay in our guest room? That's insane, Brandon. No, I'm ending 3 years because you revealed who you actually are when someone you're supposed to love asks for basic compassion. The guest room was just the symptom. The disease is your fundamental inability to extend empathy beyond your immediate self-interest. She calculated whether tears or anger would work better. She went with anger. Fine. We are done. I don't want to marry someone this petty and vindictive anyway. Someone who keeps score and waits for opportunities to punish people. You're not the man I thought you were. And you're exactly the woman you showed me you were. I just stopped making excuses for it. Victoria stormed into the bedroom and started throwing belongings into suitcases with maximum drama, slamming drawers and muttering about what a mistake she'd made, how I'd wasted 3 years of her life, how she'd tell everyone what kind of person I really was. I sat on the couch scrolling through apartment listings, already planning my next move since our lease ended in 2 months. When she emerged with overstuffed suitcases, she made one last attempt at moral high ground. I hope you're happy, Brandon. I hope destroying my family and ruining my brother's life was worth it. I hope when you're alone you remember you chose spite over love. I chose consistency over hypocrisy. And I'm not destroying anything. Owen destroyed his own life through gambling and violence. You destroyed our relationship by showing me you only care about family when it's yours. I'm refusing to pretend those things didn't happen. She grabbed a decorative lamp off the table and threw it against the wall where it shattered spectacularly. That's what you did to us. You broke everything because you couldn't let go of one stupid comment. I pulled out my phone and started recording. I'm documenting this for when you try to claim damage deposit money or blame me for property destruction. Please, continue. That stopped her. She looked at the phone, then at the broken lamp, then back at me with genuine hatred. You're recording me? I'm protecting myself from someone having a destructive tantrum in our shared living space. Seems reasonable. Victoria grabbed her suitcases and headed for the door, then turned back. You'll regret this. When you realize what you lost, when you're alone and miserable, you'll remember you had someone who loved you and you threw it away over nothing. I'll remember I had someone who loved the stability I provided, not the person I actually am. There's a difference, and you're about to learn it the hard way. She slammed the door so hard the frame shook, and I heard her car peel out with excessive speed. I sat in the quiet apartment, then called my landlord about breaking the lease early. 2 weeks later, I heard Owen had accepted a plea bargain, 90 days in county jail, 2 years probation, mandatory gambling addiction counseling, full restitution to the casino, and 200 hours of community service. He avoided a felony but got a misdemeanor record that would follow him for years. Victoria was apparently devastated, posting dramatic social media updates about family loyalty and who shows up during crisis, all carefully worded to make me look like the villain without naming me. I blocked her on everything and moved on, already feeling lighter without the weight of her selective empathy. Victoria wasted no time launching damage control. Within days, mutual friends reached out with variations of the same script, clearly fed by her version. She'd painted me as financially controlling, emotionally manipulative, someone who'd isolated her from family and refused to help during their darkest moment. Her best friend Madison called 2 days after the breakup. Brandon, Victoria says you refused to help with Owen's legal defense because you were punishing her for some argument about your sister. She says you've been controlling the money in the relationship and using it to manipulate her. Is that true? I'd been expecting this. Madison, do you want the truth or Victoria's version? I want the truth. When Jade was facing eviction through no fault of her own, I asked if she could stay in our guest room temporarily. Victoria refused completely, saying family problems belong to the individual and she wasn't running a charity. Her exact words were, "Your family issues don't matter to me." I have a recording of that conversation if you'd like to hear it. Silence. You recorded her? I started documenting things after that conversation. Would you like me to send you the audio file? It's very clear. Victoria dismissed my sister's potential homelessness with complete indifference, established firm boundaries about not helping family, and then expected me to violate those same boundaries when her brother got arrested. I simply applied her philosophy consistently. More silence, then Madison's voice came back quieter. Send me the recording. I sent it immediately. The audio was damning, Victoria's dismissive tone, her refusal to consider helping Jade, her statement that family issues don't matter to her, all delivered with casual cruelty. 10 minutes later, Madison called back. That's not at all what she told me. Victoria's version probably makes her sound reasonable and me sound vindictive. The reality is she established boundaries that only applied to my family. When I held her to the same standard, she couldn't handle it. I'm going to share this with some people if that's okay. She's been telling everyone you're abusive and controlling. Share it with whoever needs to hear it. I'm done protecting her from consequences of her own words. Madison did exactly that, sending the audio to several people in our mutual friend group. The response was swift and brutal for Victoria. 3 couples who'd been planning to side with her publicly distanced themselves. 2 of her closest friends stopped returning calls after realizing she'd lied about the situation. Her cousin Felicia actually apologized after hearing the recording, saying she'd had no idea Victoria had refused to help my sister first. The social fallout hit Victoria hard, but I was already focused on moving forward. Jade and I had been talking about getting a place together since both our leases were ending. She'd been promoted to senior designer after only 8 months, earning enough to split rent comfortably, and we'd found a modern 2-bedroom apartment in a better neighborhood. The day we were moving boxes, Victoria showed up. I just carried in kitchen items when I saw her standing in the parking lot, looking small and defeated. Hair pulled back messily, no makeup, wearing sweatpants and an oversized hoodie. She looked like she'd been crying for days. "Brandon, please. I need to talk to you." I set the boxes down and walked over but kept my distance. "What do you want, Victoria?" "I made a mistake. So many mistakes, and I'm sorry. I've been thinking about everything constantly, about how I treated Jade, what I said to you, my expectations with Owen. You were right about all of it. I was a hypocrite." Jade came out carrying boxes, saw Victoria, and immediately stood beside me in silent support. Victoria's eyes flickered to her, shame crossing her face. "I'm sorry, Jade. For what I said about you, for refusing to help when you needed it. Brandon told me you're doing really well now, and I'm genuinely happy for you." Jade just nodded, not accepting or rejecting the apology, just acknowledging it. Victoria turned back to me, voice breaking. "I've lost everything, Brandon. Half our friends won't talk to me after they heard that recording. My family is furious with me for how I handled things with you. Owen's in jail and my parents barely speak to me because they blame me for driving you away. I'm alone and I finally understand what you were trying to teach me. I wasn't trying to teach you anything. I was applying your own standards consistently. I know. And I deserved it. But can't we try again? Can't I have a chance to show you I've learned? That I've changed?" I looked at her, this woman I'd planned to marry, now desperate and broken, finally understanding consequences. I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no anger, no sympathy. Just emptiness where feelings used to be. Victoria, someone who truly loved me, wouldn't have dismissed my sister's homelessness so casually. Someone who truly loved me wouldn't have threatened our future over refusing to fund her brother's escape from accountability. You didn't love me. You loved what I provided: stability, reliability, a predictable future. Those aren't the same thing. That's not true. I did love you. I do love you. You love the idea of not being alone. You love having someone who shows up consistently. But you don't love me specifically because if you did, you would have cared about things that mattered to me. You would have shown basic compassion for my family instead of treating them like inconvenient strangers. Tears streamed down her face, and they looked genuine this time, not performative. Please, Brandon. I'm begging you. Just give me one more chance to prove I can be better. No. You should work on yourself before dating anyone. Figure out why you only value people when they're useful to you. Learn to extend empathy beyond your immediate circle. Become someone who deserves genuine love instead of settling for transactional relationships. But do all of that alone without me. Victoria stood there sobbing. I gently guided Jade back toward the building. As we walked away, Victoria called out one more time. I really did love you, Brandon. I know you don't believe me, but it's true. I didn't turn around, just kept walking. Jade squeezed my arm as we entered our new apartment building, leaving Victoria alone with her regrets. 3 months later, Robert called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Brandon, I hope I'm not overstepping. I got your number from Victoria's emergency contact list. I wanted to reach out personally. His voice sounded tired, worn down. What can I do for you, Robert? Nothing. I'm calling to apologize. Diane and I have been living with both Victoria and Owen since everything fell apart, and it's been exhausting. Owen got out of jail 2 weeks ago and moved back home, and watching the two of them together has been eye-opening. They're both playing victim, constantly blaming everyone else, refusing to take real responsibility. He paused, took a deep breath. Owen shows no real remorse. He talks about his gambling like it happened to him rather than choices he made. He's angry at the casino, the security guard, the legal system, angry at you for not bailing him out. And Victoria constantly defends him, enables him, tells him he's right to feel wronged. That sounds difficult, I said, genuinely meaning it. It is. Watching Victoria with him, seeing how she treats her own family versus how she treated yours, I finally understand why you walked away. She talks about family values constantly, posts about it on social media, but when Owen needs to actually change his behavior or take accountability, she makes excuses. She only values family when it's convenient, when it makes her look good, not when it requires real sacrifice. Robert's voice cracked slightly. You were good for our family, Brandon. Stable and kind and exactly the type of man we'd hoped Victoria would end up with. And she threw it away because she couldn't see past her own self-interest. I'm sorry for how she treated you and your sister. You deserved better, and so did Jade. I appreciate you saying that, Robert. Truly. I won't take up more of your time. I just wanted you to know we don't blame you for anything. We blame ourselves for not raising Victoria to understand that love requires empathy, not just expectation. I hope you're doing well. After we hung up, I sat thinking about that conversation. Through mutual acquaintances, I heard occasional updates. Victoria was active on dating apps, her profile emphasizing the importance of family values and mutual support, which I found deeply ironic. Several guys went on first dates before discovering her brother was living at home on probation for assault and gambling addiction, and they never called back. She'd cycled through 3 jobs in 4 months, each time claiming the workplace was toxic or her boss unreasonable, never acknowledging she might be the common denominator. Meanwhile, Jade was thriving. Her promotion to senior designer had come with significant responsibility, leading a team on a major rebranding project. She'd started dating Marcus, a UX designer from her agency who treated her with genuine respect. Watching them together reminded me what healthy relationships looked like. Mutual support, genuine interest in each other's success, showing up consistently without keeping score. One evening, Jade and I were cooking dinner when she brought up Victoria. Do you ever regret how things ended? Like, do you wonder if you could have handled it differently? I thought about it while stirring pasta sauce. No. Victoria showed me exactly who she was when she dismissed your crisis so casually. Everything after was just confirmation. The only thing I regret is the $6,500 engagement ring I'll never get back, but that's a small price for avoiding marriage with someone who only valued me for what I could provide. I sometimes feel guilty that your relationship ended because of me. It didn't end because of you, Jade. It ended because Victoria revealed her true character when confronted with someone else's legitimate crisis. If it hadn't been you facing eviction, it would have been something else eventually. She showed me who she was, and I finally listened. Jade smiled and bumped my shoulder. Well, I'm really glad you're my brother. You showed up when I was at my lowest point, no questions asked, no conditions. That's what real family does, and Victoria never understood that because she only valued her own blood relatives. Everyone else was expendable. 6 months after the breakup, I ran into Victoria at a coffee shop. I was meeting a client when I spotted her sitting alone by the window, staring into a half-empty cup with vacant expression that suggested she'd been there a while. She looked tired, older, like the weight of her choices had finally caught up physically. She saw me at the same moment, and something flickered across her face, recognition mixed with regret or resignation. I nodded politely, the way you would to any acquaintance, and turned back to wait for my order. I didn't feel vindicated or satisfied. I didn't feel anything except mild relief that I'd escaped before legally binding myself to someone fundamentally incapable of unconditional love. My coffee came up, and I took it without looking back, heading to my meeting. Life had moved on, improved even, and Victoria was just a reminder of what happens when you confuse entitlement with affection. Looking back now, Victoria actually did me a favor by refusing to help Jade. She revealed her true character early enough that I could escape before marriage, before joint finances, before kids, before things that would have made leaving exponentially harder. Her philosophy about family problems belonging to individuals was cruel when applied to Jade's unfortunate circumstances, but it became the blueprint for my response when Owen's self-created crisis emerged. Real family shows up unconditionally, especially when circumstances beyond someone's control threaten their stability. Victoria never understood that because she only valued her own blood relatives and viewed mine as expendable inconveniences. Owen learned nothing from jail time, Victoria learned nothing from losing our relationship, and Robert and Diane are probably still dealing with adult children who refuse to accept accountability. I learned exactly what I needed to know about love, loyalty, and the difference between someone who values you and someone who values what you provide. That lesson was worth every penny of that engagement ring I'll never see again.